The golden doors of the Grand Metropolitan Hotel in New York slid open, letting in a soft breeze and a woman who carried herself with quiet confidence. Her name was Monica Williams, a 35-year-old African-American entrepreneur who had just flown in from Los Angeles for a business summit. She wore a simple cream blazer, jeans, and carried a designer purse, elegant but not flashy. To most people, she looked like any regular guest. But the moment she stepped up to the reception desk, she noticed the look in the manager's eyes, the look that said, "You don't belong here." The lobby gleamed with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Rich tourists and business elites passed by, their suitcases rolling smoothly behind them. But while the receptionist quickly greeted a young white couple who had arrived after her, Monica stood there, waiting, ignored. She cleared her throat politely. "Excuse me, I have a reservation under the name Monica Williams." The manager, Richard Collins, looked up slowly. He was in his mid-40s, with slicked back hair and an attitude polished by years of catering to wealthy clients. He gave her a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ma'am," he said, voice dripping with sarcasm, "our rooms start at $1,200 a night. Perhaps you're looking for something more. Affordable down the street." A few guests nearby turned their heads. One woman raised an eyebrow. Another whispered something to her husband. Monica felt the familiar sting, not of surprise, but of disappointment. She had faced this tone before, many times, but instead of arguing, she smiled softly. "That's fine. I'd like your best suite available." Richard let out a short laugh, pretending to be polite, but clearly mocking. "Our best suite?" he repeated loudly enough for the lobby to hear. "That's the presidential suite, $3,000 a night. It's usually reserved for VIPs, politicians, CEOs, people of a certain standard." The words "certain standard" hung heavy in the air. Monica kept her calm. "That'll be fine," she said, placing her purse on the counter. But Richard wasn't done. He leaned forward, lowering his voice just enough to sound cruel. "Tell you what," he said with a smirk, "if you can pay cash for our worst room, just $400, I'll personally upgrade you to the presidential suite, free." A few people gasped. One elderly lady muttered, "That's just wrong." But no one stepped in. Monica looked at him for a long second, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded. "All right," she said softly. "You have a deal." She opened her purse, took out a neat envelope, and placed it on the marble counter. The sound of the envelope hitting the counter echoed through the room. "There's your $400, she said. The lobby went silent. Richard blinked in disbelief. Surely she was bluffing. But when he opened the envelope, the bills were there, clean, crisp, perfectly counted. He forced a laugh. "Ma'am, I can't just give away a presidential suite. That was obviously a joke." Monica tilted her head slightly. "A joke?" she repeated. "Because I didn't laugh." At that moment, a few guests began recording quietly on their phones. They knew this wasn't just another hotel scene. Something big was unfolding. Monica reached into her purse again and placed a sleek black business card next to the envelope. "Since you like to know who your guests are," she said calmly, "that's me." Richard glanced down and his fake smile froze. The card read, "Monica Williams, founder and CEO, Williams Global Investments." His throat went dry. He had just humiliated a woman whose company was featured in Forbes last month. Before he could react, a deep voice came from behind. "Monica Williams? Well, this is a surprise." Everyone turned. Walking in through the glass doors was David Johnson, a tall black man in an expensive navy suit, one of the most well-known attorneys in New York City. He greeted Monica with genuine warmth. "David," Monica smiled, "I didn't expect to see you here." David glanced at the tense scene and raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay here?" Richard's face turned pale. He suddenly recognized David Johnson, a man famous for winning high-profile discrimination cases. "Everything's fine, sir," Richard said quickly, forcing a grin. "Just a small misunderstanding." "Really?" David asked, his tone calm but sharp. "Because it looks like you just mocked my client publicly and broke a verbal agreement. I'd hate for this to end up in court." The lobby filled with murmurs. Guests were whispering, phones recording. The same people who had ignored Monica, minutes earlier, now watched Richard crumble. I didn't mean anything by it, the manager stammered. Of course, Miss Williams can have any room she wants. Monica cut him off gently. No, Mr. Collins, you meant every word. And so did I. She turned to David. Can you make sure this entire interaction stays on record? David nodded, pulling out his phone. Already recording since I walked in. Richard looked around helplessly. His arrogance had vanished, replaced by fear. A moment later, the hotel's regional director, a well-dressed woman in her 50s named Susan Miller, hurried out from the back office. She had been alerted by staff that something serious was happening in the lobby. What's going on here? She asked sharply. Before Richard could speak, Monica stepped forward. I came here for a quiet stay, she said evenly. Instead, I was insulted, mocked, and discriminated against by your manager in front of a lobby full of guests. Gasps echoed around. Susan looked horrified. Ma'am, I am so sorry. This is completely unacceptable. Mr. Collins, my office, now. Richard opened his mouth, but she raised her hand. Now. As he disappeared into the hallway, Monica turned toward Susan. Don't fire him, she said calmly. Just teach him what humility looks like. Susan blinked. Excuse me? Monica smiled slightly. Let him handle my stay personally. Every check-in, every request. Let him serve the woman he thought wasn't worthy of being here. The director hesitated, then nodded slowly. Consider it done, Ms. Williams. A few guests started clapping softly. Someone whispered, That's what real class looks like. Later that evening, Monica stood by the window of her presidential suite, looking out at the glittering Manhattan skyline. The city lights reflected in her eyes as she spoke quietly to David, who had stayed to check on her. I used to think silence was strength, she said, that walking away was the best answer. But sometimes standing your ground calmly speaks louder than any argument. David nodded. You didn't just stand your ground today. You changed how everyone in that lobby will look at people from now on. Monica smiled faintly. Maybe, but I didn't do it for them. I did it for every person who's ever been told they don't belong somewhere. Down in the lobby, Richard Collins walked toward the elevator with a silver tray in his trembling hands. On it sat a note and a glass of champagne. He knocked softly on Monica's door. Come in, she said. He entered, eyes low. Ma'am, I wanted to personally apologize. I was wrong. Monica looked at him, her face kind but firm. I accept your apology, she said. But remember something, Mr. Collins. Respect is free. It doesn't depend on color, title, or money. It's just the right thing to do. He nodded, ashamed. You've taught me that, ma'am. Monica took the glass, raised it slightly, and said, To lessons learned the hard way. As he left, the door closed softly behind him. Monica turned back toward the window, watching the city lights dance below. Her reflection stared back, strong, calm, and victorious. In that moment, she didn't just feel like the owner of a successful company. She felt like the owner of her story.